Hello, friends, and welcome back to yet another fun installment of the Cup Screenplays Adjacent. I am your co-artistic producer, formerly Ginger, now bald host, Mackenzie, and tonight we are doing one of our fun screenplays episodes, an episode that was set up several episodes ago by Ryan and I when we talked about the Shakespearean canon on film, where I had not seen Hamnet yet. Ryan had seen Hamnet, and therefore I kept saying, at some point, we'll do a review of Hamnet proper. And Ryan was like, how about now? And I said, you know what? Post-Oscar run, after it's had all its accolades and praise sung upon it, let's kind of pick it apart a bit and have some fun with it. So that's what we're doing. We're talking about the 2025 film adaptation of Hamnet, directed by Chloé Zhao, who is also an Oscar-winning director in her own right, and stars now Oscar winner Jessie Buckley as Agnes, and Paul Mescal as William Shakespeare. And we have a esteemed panel joining us tonight. First of all, we have Istvan coming back once again because we had talked about this film during a pre-show discussion you and I were having. So when Ryan was like, who should we get on this panel? I was like, I want Istvan back to join us. So welcome back, good sir.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
What is in your cup tonight, sir?
In my cup, and this might be sophisticated or naughty or both, but I am having some white wine.
Ooh.
So,
well done.
Get me all relaxed from my stressful day and into the mood of this discussion.
And of course, we have my co-artistic producer, the man who rocks plaid better than anyone I know. It is the wonderful Ryan Barakovich. Hello, Ryan.
Hello, Mac. Good to be here. Good to be having this discussion. It's also funny, when we did that previous Shakespeare on Cinema episode, I thought Hamnet was going to be a much bigger part of that discussion, and I hadn't yet seen Hamnet. So I'm like, okay, I'll rush to see Hamnet this week so we could talk about it. And then I show up to that recording to find out you hadn't seen Hamnet yet either. So
nope.
So we did not get to talk about it in that episode. Happy we've both seen it and can talk about it now.
Now, Ryan, do you want to tell us a bit about your fun background? Because normally I'd ask the ensemble question, but you have such a dynamic background. What is this background?
Yeah, I finally figured out how to make digital backgrounds on Zoom on my computer. Yeah, it took me this long after the pandemic. So thought I'd give this a whirl for this episode. For those listening on podcast only, you have no idea what we're talking about, but I'm clearly at the Globe in London. I'm in Shakespeare's Globe. This is a photo of it that I took when I visited a few years ago. That's why the angle is very terrible, because I'm no good at photography, but that's the stage. And hey, some of this film takes place on a stage very similar to the one that this is a contemporary replica of.
You were down in the pit with the masses like Agnes.
Yes, I was a groundling, and I leaned on the stage. I did not want a chair.
And then we have an exciting new panelist.
But what about my cup?
She is. Oh, I'm sorry, Ryan.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
Don't you
I got so
care
excited
what
about your
I'm
background,
drinking?
I totally forgot about your cup.
Don't you care what I'm drinking, Meg?
We've done so many episodes, Ryan. At this point, I'm like, it's going to be Yorkshire tea.
It is. Hashtag
Huzzah!
not yet sponsored. The green screen is ruining it. But yes, Yorkshire tea. Hashtag not yet sponsored, but maybe someday. I'm drinking it in my Over the Garden Wall mug today, which is a piece of art that moves me, similar to how this is a film about art that moves us. A lot of it is set in the woods, just like how a lot of this film is set in the woods. And there's the slogan that's on this mug. I don't know if you can see it says, "Ain't that just the way?" And doesn't that just capture the existential conundrum of the play Hamlet? Ain't that just the way?
Indeed.
That is all.
Wonderful. Okay. And then, as I was saying, we have a wonderful new panelist. She is the sister to one of our past panelists, Sophie, who joined me on White Rabbit, Red Rabbit. And when we were searching for our fourth panelist, Sophie had suggested her sister join us, and it is the wonderful Macklin. Hello.
Hi. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. Welcome. Tell us a bit about yourself for our viewers, listeners. Kind of how you came to Hamnet, your experiences in the world of the arts. Because I know Sophie talks all about her past experiences seeing Cats as a youth, and that has got her into the world of theater.
Yeah, okay. So I've also been to the Globe. I did not see a Shakespeare play. I saw one of the other plays that came out around the same time that they also put on, because they can't just do Shakespeare all the time at the Globe. Like, they can, but they do like to change it up a bit. I forget what I saw, but I remember also standing in the pit, and it was really fun, and I enjoyed myself quite a bit. I took Shakespeare classes in high school and in university, but those were a very long time ago. So I'm not going to bring them to this, but I've been interested in Shakespeare since I was very young. I think the biggest thing about Hamnet, though, is that I saw Hamlet live for the first time a couple of years ago by the Same Book and Rook Theatre companies in Hamilton. It was the most amazing live theater I have ever been to. They do site-specific theater, and I'd seen so many screen adaptations of Hamlet before I saw it live for the first time, and I just had never understood that play. It was fine, but I never really understood it until I saw this production of Hamlet, and then I was crying. I was like, oh, it is a tragedy. I am sobbing at the end. It was just amazing. They also did a bunch of gender swapping for that. So yeah, Hamlet was a woman. And I know Hamlet has been a woman on like the West End and a bunch of professional theater settings. So it's like a very common thing to do. But I had never seen a gender swapped Hamlet before. And it really recontextualized things a lot for me. And yeah, I shout out to that production of Hamlet. It was amazing. And now it is one of my favorite Shakespeare plays because I now understand it a lot more than I did when I had to read it for school.
Wonderful. And what's in your cup?
So I have a Barack Obama mug.
Nice.
And I am drinking a blood orange San Pellegrino.
Ooh, well done.
Obama approved.
Agreed.
Presidential seal of approval.
I was told to bring a fun mug, so I was like, this is the funniest mug.
Good job. You nailed the assignment.
You followed the directions perfectly. We applaud.
Mac, what's in your cup?
I am drinking, what am I drinking tonight? I am drinking some orange pineapple sugar-free juice tonight. So,
nice.
Yes, indeed. Now that we have gotten all our wonderful intros off the docket, let us head into the second act of our 5-act structure of this episode tonight. Let us dive into our thoughts and impressions of the film. Would we recommend it to others? What were kind of our general impressions of this piece? Ishtavan, we'll start with you tonight.
Do I have to speak in verse?
If you can.
If you can, I would be even more impressed.
So, general impressions. I want to be very careful because I know this can sound sort of condescending. And there's a lot of films that fall into this category for me that I do enjoy a lot. Spoiler alert, I did not enjoy Hamnet either of the two times I saw it. There's things I like about it, but to me it feels, I hate saying this, but it's exactly how I feel, that it's an art house film for normies. Like it feels very art house. But in a way that's very pedestrian and kind of very accessible. Here's the thing about Hamnet that I find fascinating and frustrating. It has all of my things. I should really like it. I can't really, except for one thing, which might come up much later, that I do fault it for. I love all the elements of it. I love the script. I love the performances. I love the production design and the cinematography, the story. All of it should really work for me. And yet it doesn't. It falls flat. And I know a little later we might be talking about the Mark Kermode comment about it being manipulative. And I'm like, well, I don't know if that's how I feel. All art is manipulative. It's just a matter of whether you fall for it or not, if it's convincing for you. So I don't want to call it manipulative. Whatever it's doing, I should really like, and it fell flat. But I would recommend it simply because it is exceptionally well made. It is a well-made film. And most people bawl their eyes out. So I'm an outlier, I know. In fact, it was rather uncomfortable. 2 friends recommended it, and I saw it with a very close friend of mine who at the end, and I don't know if you've ever been in this experience, she's at the end and she's absolutely just gushing tears. And I had to look over at her and I was stone-faced and I felt so bad. Because it's something that, even that thing, the reaching out, all the audience reach. Oh, spoiler. Yes. Is that a spoiler?
This is all spoilers this episode.
Okay,
There's
fine,
no shit.
Okay.
It's all spoilers. There's no spoilers.
The movie's been out for a while.
It's been out for a while. The book's been out for a while.
this reaching towards the whole audience, bonding with him. That's my thing. It's my thing. And it didn't work for me. Even there's a Lynchian motif that I really appreciate, that I don't know if we want to get into that yet. Maybe we'll save that for later.
Ryan is like
I'm
smirking
intrigued.
away.
I'm intrigued by the Lynchian motif.
There's a dark chasm that appears, and sometimes it's a dark stage door, or it's a cave under the tree. That absence, that looming absence.
The undiscovered country, let's say.
And that I get that. But it, for some reason, it fell flat for me. Everything pretty much fell flat for me, except for there are two scenes that got to me, and there are also two scenes that made me incredibly angry.
I think I know what one of them are.
Those are my general impressions. So I don't know if we want me to go on any further into detail yet.
We can save that, because I feel like your scenes that made you really angry, we can definitely go into like in the weakest element.
Yes.
And dive deeper in that section. But generally, I'm very intrigued now to see where you guys. I didn't really realize you had such a strong, intense reaction to.
It doesn't sound that strong. It sounds like you wish you liked it.
I do wish I liked it. I should have. I feel like I should have. And in fact, honestly, the way art works, 5 years from now, I might see it, and it has a completely different effect on it, right?
I will say one fun fact about the film is the moment you talked about the hand reach moment was improvised. That was not a staged moment. I know. Jessie Buckley just did it. She has two big improv moments in the film. One was the hand moment that all the extras went, well, she's doing it, I'm doing it. And they all just went with it, and Chloé Zhao was like, in the film. The next moment was after the death of Hamnet, and she has that primal scream. That was another one that was not scripted. That was just Jessie Buckley's
mother sounds
raw. Yeah, basically that's what she said. She because she's a mother. Chloe was like, just react how you would. Like, she's like, I'm just gonna roll the camera. We're gonna play the scene. Like, you just do you. There's minimal direction from me in this. I just wanted you to do it. And the thing Jessie Buckley came up with was that primal scream of pain that comes from her. Which, Ryan, now I want to hear your general thoughts.
Well, okay, before I do my general thoughts, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Because you just dropped some provocative trivia here, and now I have follow-up questions. So the reach was not scripted.
Yes.
Something
was not scripted.
Okay, something I noticed on the second viewing in preparation for this episode that I obviously didn't catch the first time around, because how could I? Is that right when Hamnet is dying, like in the earlier scene, young Hamnet is dying.
Yes.
He reaches out his hand and she tries to grab it, but then he withers away and it falls. I didn't clock that as being that significant the first time around, but then that is part of what's going on in your subconscious that makes that moment, at least for many of us, hit so hard. So then on a second viewing, remembering the climax, seeing that moment made me think, oh my God, what the play at the end is the gift of not just seeing her son all grown up acting with his father at the theater, but also having the opportunity to reach out and touch him and feel him and have everyone feel him. So did they film that scene after, or is that just a fluke that...
I don't know their filming schedule.
Why don't you know their...
Damn it, Ryan!
I know it, because like they did film it. I think I read that they filmed it in order for the kids, especially just because they figured out because the very iconic like behind the scenes video that she released at like when it went wide with them dancing to Rihanna, that was their final day and that was their final take, and that's why they're dancing to Rihanna at the Globe, because it was like their big final scene, and they were like, and we're gonna rap on this, and they had a big dance party.
So they got that shot of her reaching and not grasping his hand before they knew the movie would end that way. That is no one knows what they're doing in terms of how films are made. Like, that is incredible.
It's editing, right? It's editing. Like, someone probably just was like, wait a minute, and then like made sure to like highlight those two scenes, and we're like, we got this. The editor was just like, don't worry, I got you.
Well, that just makes me appreciate this film even more. And then to answer the question, I love this movie. I thought it was great. I'm sorry if this is going to be contentious now. I didn't realize it would be. Yeah. I bawled in the movie theater watching this. And on a second viewing, even though I knew exactly what was coming, I still got misty. It just gets me. I am someone, and I think this is probably true for many of us, spends an awful lot of time watching plays. Watching someone watch a play was the most enthralled I've been at a movie in this whole past year. And I think there's something, we will talk more about the emotional manipulative critique of Mark Kermode, because I think there's something interesting to unpack there. But there is just like a pure mirror neurons of watching someone have a cathartic reaction and feeling it yourself. And yeah, that moment with the reaching for the stage and then everybody reaches in, I know it's calculated to create that feeling, but god damn it, it worked for me. That's obviously the big payoff, but like I was with it the entire time. And I think there's a lot of really intriguing things about the structure of it that shouldn't be as wowing to me as they are, but I think I've just seen so many things that that made me experience this with a sense of surprise. And two of them that I'll say, this movie is not Shakespeare in Love, and this movie is not Bohemian Rhapsody. I said a version of this in our Shakespeare and Cinema episode, but let me unpack this for a moment, because at the time, Mac, you hadn't seen the movie and I didn't want to spoil it for you. But when you know the pitch of this movie is Shakespeare's son dies and it inspires him to write the greatest tragedy ever told, you kind of expect this movie to be both Shakespeare in Love, as in how what's going on in Shakespeare's life inspiring him to write his great works. And you kind of expect the structure of that in our post-Bohemian Rhapsody music biopic kind of milieu to be a very rote, something happens, now I'm inspired, now I go to write, oh, that's how he came up with that. And there's moments in this movie that kind of gesture towards that, but in a very, I won't call it subtle, but delicate way. Things like the returning of phrases that we know from Hamlet, like undiscovered country and the rest is silence. That is very, oh, I know what that means. And then when they show up in the play, I don't have the, oh, so I guess that's how they wrote Fat Bottom Girls ambivalence that I have watching a movie like Bohemian Rhapsody. I have like okay, wait, he got stuff from this that we knew felt like just Easter eggs, but now they're kind of cropping up in interesting ways. It just works. It's not really the story of how he wrote Hamlet or how Hamlet was inspired by this incident. It's a story about how we process grief in different ways and how we can use art to process grief. And that's something that really touched me about this. The other thing that I kind of feel structurally is interesting about it, and this kind of goes back to the music biopic critique here. I keep saying music biopic because that's kind of become a genre on its own, and Bohemian Rhapsody is the epitome of a bad version of that, in my opinion. But I was really expecting them to do the Dewey Cox has to think about his whole life before he can go on stage thing, which all of those bad music biopics do, which is then parodied in Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, the John C. Reilly movie, where I was quite taken aback for a moment, because when we first see Shakespeare, he's teaching Latin, he sees Agnes out the window, and then when he goes down and like starts chatting with her, it took me a moment to realize, oh, they don't know each other yet. This is them meeting. And that should be normal, but I think we're very used to these stories about the creative process and how life inspires people to create their art. We expect non-linearity from these stories. That's how they seem to often be told. You expect Freddie Mercury or Johnny Cash to be standing at the beginning of the concert and has to think about his whole life, and then we'll experience the career through flashbacks. And I don't know why I assumed this movie would do that, but I was stunned by the confident linearity of it, that it doesn't feel the need to do Christopher Nolan style editing tricks and play with time. That is just, yep, they meet, they fall in love, they have kids, one of those kids dies, he goes back to London, he writes the greatest play ever written. Amazing. It feels so simple, but these are the kind of things that just got me leaning in. I'm like, okay, I think this is interesting.
This is so interesting because I know the book question is coming later, but that is the book.
I assume so, but I haven't.
Yeah, the book is the Bohemian Rhapsody thing.
Oh, really?
It's the time jumping.
Oh my god.
It's the time jumping. And I didn't clock that would be annoying, because it's also not about Shakespeare. It's about his wife. Like, it's about Agnes. Like, And so therefore, all of those conventions that are really tired, I don't like, they're not tired because it's about Agnes instead of Shakespeare. If it was about Shakespeare, that book would have been really boring, but it wasn't. And so that flashback really worked for me. I mean, again, I'm spoiling the book question, but that's so interesting that you said that, because I'm just like,
okay, well, that's
no.
thank you for sharing that. Actually, that might change my answer to the book question that we get to later, which we'll save that. Maggie O'Farrell, who wrote the book, co-wrote the screenplay with Chloé Zhao.
I have so many thoughts about that, which we will also get to.
I'm so looking forward to hearing that. We're so glad you're here.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've talked a lot. Do you want to give your answer to the first question?
Yes. Okay, so I'm way more on Istvan's side of things. This left me like, I enjoyed it. The formal bits, beautiful, because I love a beautiful film. I love beautiful music. So Max Richter coming in, I was like, okay, this is going to be good. But I also suspect that they are going to lose me with the writing. I have suspicions, and they did. That was like, again, we'll get to when we go weakest points, but it left me cold. I did cry. I did cry at the end because they did very good parallel structure, and I am a sucker for that. And I'm a sucker for On the Nature of Daylight, and I'm a sucker for mother-son, like mother-child, any child relationship. So I was crying, but when I left the theater, I was just like, I mean, it was fine. It was a solid 3 out of 5 for me. So like, I even could say that I liked it, but yeah, it was not the best film ever made. I was not going to go, like, it should win every Oscar. I was like, I can see Jessie winning, but I think and you can stop there. That's all that this film needs. I definitely would recommend it to talk about things that go on in it, because I think it is really interesting on how it's like, its adaptation choices, the way that we are choosing to center a mother and a wife, and like how constricting film is when talking about that, because the book was so good and it was so interesting, and it really gave such dimensionality to Agnes, and the movie just couldn't do it, and it was fascinating. I was just like, is this medium or is this writing? Because I was like, Maggie, you wrote the screenplay. Why is this like this? I don't know. So I was like, oh man, I was like grappling with print versus movie, and like the limitations of both and all that stuff coming out of the movie. But I'm like, yeah, please see it. But also, like, it's because I want to talk to people about it, not because I think it's like amazing. It was fine. Like, especially if there are other movies like this and you want to compare it, like, please let me know, because I would probably like to see those films. Because yeah, formally, this is everything that I want. It's just the execution, mostly the writing, not my thing.
Fair. I mean, for me, I went into it thinking this was going to be another Shakespeare in Love, regular biopic of, as Ryan said, how does one come up with the great piece of art that we all know? And having read some books about the geopolitical and political things that were going on in Shakespeare's time that would have inspired things, like we know that the reason why Henry V was written was because the Elizabethan court was going to go invade Ireland, do have a war off in Ireland, and they needed to rouse public support for a war cause. And so basically it was commissioned to write, he had to write a war play basically to get the masses on board with going to war with a country that really they had no right of going to war with. That whole concept of why does Shakespeare write his plays when he does is fascinating to me. So, and I knew the history of Hamnet and the death and all that stuff. So the topic itself is interesting, but I went in and was pleasantly surprised that this was not about Shakespeare. This was about his wife, who has been getting, I will say, in the last few decades, some much due attention, because Anne Juliet has her as a main focal point character. Ryan, I don't know if you remember, but Stratford did a play. It was either Shauna McKenna or Lisa Pico. I think it was Shauna played Anne, and it was all about her reading the will and getting the second best.
Shakespeare's Will by Brent Thiessen?
I think so. That sounds right. Yeah, it's like a one-woman play, basically, where it's all about her talking about their relationship, which fascinating. And then there also is that Ben Kingsley, Judi Dench Shakespeare movie, which is all about Shakespeare coming back to Stratford after retiring from London and their relationship from there. So I'm glad to see this is another one of the Anne Hathaway canon, basically.
And yeah, not to mention that she is an Oscar-winning actress reincarnated.
Yes.
2 decades.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
She dreamed a dream.
Yeah, she dreamed a
She
dream.
dreamed the dream. Past lives, coming present lives. I love it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, for me, like, generally speaking, I definitely cried at the end. My sister took me to the movie to see it because she knows I like Shakespeare and she had read the book. So this was like her Christmas gift, was an outing to go see the film together. So we went out and saw it. She cried more than I did. I will say the second time I watched it, I cried more and it got me misty-eyed in a few more spots than I did the first time. I thoroughly enjoyed my experience watching it. I still think Sinner should have won Best Picture over One Battle After Another, in my opinion.
Same.
Thank you.
But neither
I
are
will
this
say
movie.
Jessie.
Neither of this movie, but still.
Yeah. Just want to piggyback on, I do agree Jessie Buckley winning for Best Actress, which we'll get into the next question. But yeah, would I recommend it? Absolutely. I think this is a lovely, accessible film that gets right up there with like getting people into Shakespeare. Because I think there's more people now who never read Hamlet or haven't read it since high school, who are now going back to that material and are more interested in exploring it more than maybe before, who maybe were forced to read it in their high school class. Because I will say, I've seen Hamlet several times on stage, and the ending has never made me cry. By the end of Hamlet, I'm like, dude, just die. Bring on Fortinbras. Let's go. Come on.
Everyone's favorite character.
Fortinbras, baby. Yeah. All the way.
Just in the same boat
like
theater. I cried when Hamlet died. I was like, oh no, I can't. No, don't die.
For me, like Hamlet's never been a character that I've identified with.
Sounds like that's a production we all should have seen, because
I agree.
I'm with
Clearly they did something right.
Yeah. Honestly, Kenneth Branagh has never moved me like
wow.
like Same boat theater girl moved me.
Yeah, Kenneth Branagh. I mean, I like his Henry V. I will say I do like his Henry V. Yeah, in general, Hamlet was never my favorite Shakespeare. I kind of get really frustrated with him as a character, where I just want him to do something and he just keeps monologuing at me. It was one of those ones where I feel it's a bit of an overhyped piece of the canon, where I'm like, how many more times do I have to hear somebody go to be or not to be at me?
Oh, them's fighting words. I like it.
I know. Listen. I'm not saying it's a bad play.
But
I love
do we
it
like it when we hear it in this film? Maybe we'll talk about that.
Paul
okay.
We will get into that.
Oh, I don't. That's great.
Okay. We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it. Either way, generally speaking, I like the film. I recommend the film. I mean, I got my other sister to watch it here at the condo. My dad refuses to watch it because of his life experiences with grief, and he's like, Mac, no desire to go diving into that story. My aunt watched it on the plane, cried the whole way through. I've gotten a few people on board with it now, where I'm very happy to say I've been spreading the word of Hamnet. But yeah, let's dive into our thoughts, though, on Ms. Jessie Buckley and Paul Mescal's performances as our lead couple of Agnes, aka Anne Hathaway, and Mr. William Shakespeare. Mr. Ryan Barakovich, give us your thoughts and impressions. Do you think Tom Holland would have made a better William Shakespeare?
Okay, so you brought this up before we started recording, that Tom Holland was in contention to play Shakespeare.
He was.
I didn't know.
He was. Different director, though. At the time, it was, I believe, if I am not mistaken, I think it was Sam Mendes.
Sam Mendes produced it, so that sounds about right.
Hold on, I'm pulling up my pre-production notes again. Tom Holland was originally going to be in it, and then,
with Jessie
Spielberg. No. They hadn't announced who was going to play Agnes at the time. But originally Tom Holland was announced to play Shakespeare in this.
Okay.
So
interesting.
Yes,
okay.
Mr. Tom Holland.
So what am I answering here? Are we talking about the cast we have, or are we shadow casting?
You can tie it into both.
Okay. I really like these two. Most people who I've spoken to about this film agree. Well, everybody agrees that this is Jessie Buckley's show.
Oh, Brian, I have a correction. to make. I misread my notes. He was rumored to be involved, but it was never actually formally cast.
Ah. Okay.
So I amend my previous note of he was cast and then dropped. He was in contention before Paul Mescal was cast in the role.
Okay.
So adjust your notes accordingly in your answer.
Okay, adjusting. So, yeah, I think everybody who sees this movie probably agrees that this is Jessie Buckley's show. She is credible in it. She's in it almost entirely from beginning to end. She is the lead. very well-deserved Oscar. I feel bad for anyone else who was nominated who probably saw, well, of course it's going to be her. Yeah, we talked earlier about how she improvised that bellow that she gives when she experiences just the most profound grief that a mother can experience. And yeah, this entire film is a roller coaster for her performance. And yeah, from just playing with her bird in the woods to that smile and laughter she gives at the end. What a journey. Incredible. I've talked to a lot of people who said that they love her, they don't love Paul Mescal. And I disagree with that. I think he's very well suited for this role. I don't know if I can picture Tom Holland, if that's part of this question now, as Shakespeare, but I think maybe I like his casting because of how baby-faced he is. It would maybe sell the age gap between them a little more, that Anne Hathaway historically was significantly older than her husband, Will Shakespeare, and it was seen as bizarre, or historians now look back on bizarre as like, oh, why did he marry her? Well, it must have been because he got her pregnant, and that is what resulted in this relationship. And many historians and biographers seem to assume that therefore he never cared about her. That's why he spent so much time in London. But this novel was written, and I saw some interviews with Maggie O'Farrell where she talks about this to sort of counteract that claim. So, okay, Tom Holland, yeah, he looks very young. Maybe that would have worked, but I really like Paul's performance here. And I don't know if this element would have translated regardless of who's playing him. But the thing that I really love just about the scaffolding, and I don't know how much of this is Paul's ideas playing the role in the acting department, or Chloé Zhao's directing, or maybe even Maggie O'Farrell in the writing. But I love how kind of autistic Shakespeare is in this. And I think that is a big part of what sold me on his character. Because, like, to have the wealth of knowledge and to write all of those plays and sonnets the way he did, you kind of need to be a little neurodiverse, I think. And I like that this isn't like a full-out Rain Man type interpretation of that, but there is something a little seemingly neurodiverse and off about him. And there is a very early line where he talks about how he has trouble like communicating with people, and therefore he has to communicate through his art, and that becomes a big linchpin. But I feel like he kind of ran with that as like I think I understand the psychology or the cognition of this character through that neurodiversity lens. And I think that really opened up how I felt like I could relate to him in this way. So yeah, I thought they were both excellent performers, and I can't picture a version of this movie without either of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ishtavan?
Hey.
As someone who was not a fan of this film.
I am a fan of both of their performances and many other performances. I'm glad that this doesn't romanticize Shakespeare. He is a little, he doesn't quite know how to deal with people, right? Which is refreshing. The thing that I had problems with, not so much later on when their relationship was established, but early on when he's first making some moves, I didn't quite get what she saw in him. I found her very fascinating. I didn't get what she saw in him. I understand what she's experiencing later, but not early on. One of my favorite scenes for the both of them, it's all in one shot. It's when he's drunk and he's writing Romeo and Juliet. Their physicality in that scene is just incredible, and it's done all in one take. And it's her trying to comfort him and him rejecting the comfort. Watching him trying to like get away from her is so uncomfortable and very real. So that's one of my favorite scenes. The cinematography of it, the performances, especially the physicality of it. My favorite, the bit that actually did make me cry, is when, and it's funny because it's related to the thing that really irritates me, but I'm going to save it for the weakest element. But the second birth scene, when we think the daughter has died and the midwife is gonna take her away, and she's like, no, give me my daughter, and she's holding her. And when the daughter starts to show signs of life, the look of like wonder on Jessie Buckley's face, like she looks genuinely amazed. That got to me. That sequence was very special to me. And I wish I wish I knew why other things that should work for me didn't the way that did, but it absolutely did both times. It worked when I first saw it in the theater, and then when I saw it for a second time at home. That scene really struck me. I think she's incredible. I also would like to shout out Emily Watson. So I love Emily Watson. When we first meet her, especially in that scene where Agnes appears in their household, right? And as Shakespeare's mother, like I think her name is Mary.
Mary, yeah.
She does not like her, and she is very resistant to this union.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the kind of thing that could seem haughty, but she plays it it's very vulnerable. Like she's she is holding on to her family's integrity, whether that's right or wrong. Like I found it a vulnerable moment and not a haughty one. I love that when they are married, you get the sense that someone who falls under sort of in her realm of responsibility, she will be there. So when she's helping to give birth, it's not that I think she really likes her. It's that, no, this is what you do when people are a part of the family. You have their back, right? You're there. I really loved her performance. I thought it was understated. And the Hamnet, Jacoby Jupe, who I didn't realize until the second viewing is the brother of the final.
That was my fun fact.
Noah Jupe, yeah.
So, but I thought he was wonderful, very playful and sensitive. He has so many moments that I felt could be kind of cloying, but they weren't, because I believed him and I felt he was three-dimensional. He doesn't strike me as a survivor. And it's the kind of energy that makes me want to protect him and then look away. And we sort of have to watch him be who he is in this vulnerable, sensitive state. The performances across the board, I did find compelling. Even his father, like one of my favorite moments, I find it very cathartic, is when he finally stands up to his father. And not too much is made of it, right? Like it's a very quick scene. And that I enjoyed. Yeah, I love the performances across the board. And it should have made for a film that I love. This is a film I should like. And I don't.
So we're whittling down what quite didn't click. So we know the cast wasn't it.
We're going to get to it.
We'll dive deeper. I'll piggyback, though, because I'll first start saying, I agree with you. Our young Hamnet, played by Jacoby, and then Noah playing Hamlet. The fact they're both brothers. First of all, the symbolism of that and the fact that Noah's Hamlet is supposed to be portraying the son, the fact that we get that scene of the palm reading and about, seeing him sword fight and do all the stuff he was supposed to, but it's not quite the way she foresaw it, was great. And I agree, like, just the dynamic of the children in this movie, like, it's not just Jacoby, but you also have Olivia Lynns as Judith, who's the twin. And then, of course, you have
Bodhi Ray, Breathneck.
That's it, as Susanna Shakespeare. Like, all three of them as a dynamic, as a trio of children. Terrific. Like, once again, children can be hit or miss, where either they're great in the movie or they totally kill your movie. Because it
never work with children or animals, and they have both in this.
They do. I mean, God bless that falcon. And
hawk.
I mean,
Thank you very much.
Sorry, the hawk.
Learn your birds.
I should know my birds. I work around a falcon all day. Even the hawk gets a honorable mention here for being a terrific supporting player. I mean, when that bird dies, goddamn, it doesn't ever hit you. But for our lead couple, Jessie and Paul, they're linked. Like I was saying this to Ryan earlier, because originally one of our original layouts for our questions was separating the two. And I said, I don't think you can, because these two are so intrinsically hooked together, where if you take one away, it does affect the other's dynamic. Like, I agree, the hot and heaviness was missing at the beginning, but I think that's because Agnes's connection isn't physical per se. There's an emotional connect that they get, because there's that moment in the forest and he brings her the glove and there's like a emotional connection they somehow and tosses it. But just there wasn't anything physical about it really. Like, I thought it was more of a intellectual, emotional connect that they pair up with. And so I think what happened is because this isn't Shakespeare's story and Paul disappears for chunks of time when he's off in London, he does get a bit undercut by the piece because we're not getting more scenes with him, seeing his journey in London, tracking his experience before, before basically it kind of all comes at the end, when he is in London rehearsing and he has the tomorrow and tomorrow speech on the dock.
Not tomorrow and tomorrow.
Where he's about, to be or not to be. To be or not to be, where he's gonna like pull a Javert and jump off, into
we'll talk about it.
Water. Yeah, exactly. Into the watery depths below. I feel like he kind of gets a little shortchanged by the fact that we kind of cram a lot of his emotional arc into the end because he's kind of been missing for the whole middle section of the story. And I think that's why he probably didn't get a nomination, even though it was a stacked season for male performances, I would say, between a lot of the films that were nominated. So it is hard to figure out like who you would drop to fill him in. And even then, I wouldn't put him as a lead. I put him as a supporting actor. Yeah. Not because, it's bad. It's just because his screen time is more limited than, say, Michael B. Jordan in Sinners.
Was more stacked than lead actor.
100%. My point being is, I do think both are great. Jessie Buckley's scream forever haunts me when she's holding her dead child. And once again, the dynamic between the two of them is so wonderfully awkward and rich. Like, just the moment of them leaving the house when they're moving to the house on the Avon that's bigger and has more space. But yet the one thing Agnes is craving in that moment is less space. She wants connection. She wants emotion. She wants her husband to react like she is. But he's not. He's distant. He's spaced out from her. Or at least so she thinks, even though he is processing his grief in his own way. But the fact that, there's that moment in the bedroom and just their dynamic there, that tension is just so well done. To pair them together, the casting director who was nominated for Best Casting, did a very good job finding this pair and putting them together, because I do think you can't do one without the other. And I can see why Jessie Buckley kept mentioning Paul in all her acceptance speeches, because she kept saying, I'm one half of this dynamic. I can't do my job without having, the other end of the spectrum to play against, the good scene partner. I do think they were great. But Macklin, I want to hear your thoughts, because you did not like Paul Mescal's To Be or Not to Be on the dock.
Oh, no.
So...
at all, but
what
more book
work?
Again, it's more book question. It's not Paul. It's more book.
Okay.
I have so much. I wanted to get to the book question because I have so much to say. Because
we're almost there.
Book right before I watched the movie, and so I also am coming at this with such this didn't happen in the book, or this did happen in the book, and why did they do this instead? Oh my god. That's how I saw the movie. That's how I've held the movie in my head. So it's just a big part of my history with this movie. So, but okay, just performances though. I've been a fan of Jessie Buckley's for since Wild Rose, and I think it's not the scream, it's not the big stuff. I love how she watches things, how she observes and shows that she's observing. That is my favorite part of her performance. And that was my favorite part of and that's my favorite part of just how she acts, is she's so good at watching and being so present in the scenes that she is in. She's such a grounding force in that movie, not just because she's the center of it and not just because it's about her, it's because of her acting and of the way that she moves in a scene, how she watches everything. And I thought she did such a good job of that in this film. I thought Paul was great because, I don't think if Jessie didn't have someone to match that energy, even if it's not the same, even it's not the watchfulness, he had, he's more busy. He wants to do all these things. He wants to travel. But that energy with hers, I don't know what it was, but it matched and it was great. And I really believe them as a couple. And I really believe that you could also tell, I love it when you can tell that actors are also having a really good time, when they're not acting with each other. I think it does bleed on screen chemistry, chemistry out, off screen and on screen, mesh. And I don't know. I definitely felt not just with the interviews, but on screen that you could tell that these characters got along and that they vibed. So I thought they were wonderfully cast. I loved the children. I thought they were great. And I loved Emily Watson. My main critique about her is that should have had more of her. She's again, way bigger part in the book. And I was just wanted more.
My sister
there were
certain
scenes that I was I couldn't wait, and then she didn't get to do them, and I was no, waste of Emily Watson. Don't do this to me, because she's so good. She's so good. She had that stern but carried thing down, and I was just like, oh, she's so good. And I think Noah Jupe really also surprised me because I already knew about him being the brother, but the way that he walks like his little brother, the way that his expression, like, he did such a good job. I was like, oh no, I am gonna cry. Like, you're doing a very good job of playing your little brother. And so coming in at the end there, I was like very impressed with him as well. So those are my thoughts on.
Fun little tidbit about Noah Jupe, in addition to the whole sibling thing. When we first see the playbill that Agnes's stepmother gives her for the Your Husband Wrote a Tragedy, it says Hamlet, played by Mr. Jupe, on there. And
no,
and me not, I've never seen either of the Jupe actors before this. I didn't know their names watching the movie for the first time, but I'm like, that's weird because I know that Hamlet was originally played by Richard Burbage. So what a weird thing to get historically wrong. But then when I saw the credits at the end of the movie, I'm like, oh, that's fun.
He is played by Mr. Jupe.
All right, diving into the next question then. Macklin, what was your favorite production or design element of the film? Did you really have one?
I think it was mostly the music. The music was amazing. And the music was like just enough for every scene. And it worked really well with the nature and the forest elements. Sonically and visually, everything worked really well together and kept matching each other. And I really enjoyed that.
Love that. Istvan?
I love the fact that everything is so earthy and dirty. I love that all of these people are dirty. The fingernails in particular, if you look at the fingernails are dirty. It's great. Stringy hair, people look a little rough around the edges. That makes me very happy. I love the fact that all of the interiors too, there's this sort of drab, cool somberness to everything. It is depressingly cozy. It feels very cozy, but in a way that's not quite comfortable, but you are living with and accepting the discomfort. So like all of the scenes in the woods, everything feels a little ick, but in a way that I enjoy. Sometimes it's pleasant to immerse yourself in a certain discomfort, especially if you have control over it. That spoke to me. I did find it, again, there are things about, for example, like the cinematography. This is where I sort of have this feeling of it being sort of an art film for people who don't necessarily like art films. Like there are these shots that start looking up at the trees, and then we're always like sort of tilting down to the earth, and always trees. And it's not that there's anything wrong with that. I can so clearly feel the intention, and it often didn't work for me. But still, again, everything felt a little bit wet all of the time. So viscerally, I am responding to it, but I keep getting taken out. There's something about this film that's pulling me in and pushing me away constantly. So I would say that the cinematography and the production design, the earthiness of the production design, and the somber, unpolished vibes of the cinematography, I enjoyed.
I could sort of jump on that too, because I agree. Cinematography, I think it's like very, that the palpability of it, you feel the texture of the woods and the surroundings, everything, the moistness. There is this like grunginess that the cinematography really captures. And similar to the point you were saying about the dirt under the fingernails and the stringy hair, I kind of really love the costume design just as a whole in this, because, well, right off the bat, there's very few costume changes like in any of this. They're almost always wearing the exact same outfits. And I kind of dig that because, one, it feels like a play, which I appreciate. And two, they're poor. Yeah. Yes, he becomes a successful playwright and he makes a lot of money and can buy the biggest house in all of Stratford. But like, you can never really take that sort of class dynamic out of them. These are people who are not used to having anything. And I think we're used to period dramas like this being all about the big ruffs and the frills and costume changes. That's why we tend to laud the costumes in these types of period dramas. But unless you are the elite, and the elite tend to be the people who get biographized on film in that way, you probably only have like one or two good outfits that you will just wear over and over again, and they will get dirty. And I appreciate how the costume design sort of captured that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll piggyback on that because costume design was my shit out. Even though, yes, you're right, Ryan, same costume, but she played with colors. If you noticed, ever so slightly, like Agnes's red dress, as she goes into mourning and is feeling depressed, it goes from a richer red to a brown, muddy red. And then by the end, you can see a bits of her costume are going back to that lighter red again, but it's not fully back to that original red. And same thing with Paul's Shakespeare leather vest that he wears. The more he is opened up to himself and his grief, the more slashes there are in the vest. Like it starts off very wholesome, and then by the end it's ripped apart because he's really spilling out like dagger wounds. And even like the ghost of Hamlet's father, just the fact they did it with like a plaster cape type thing and put Paul in all this dusty plaster. I was like, what a great use of like, how would an Elizabethan audience do a ghost?
Well, if I can be a little nerdy about theater history for a moment, there are lines.
Nerd away.
There are lines in Hamlet about how the ghost is clad in armor, just like how Hamlet Sr. met his fate in battle against Fortinbras Sr. So could we ding the costume design of the play within the play for not actually following the costume notes that are given to us in the version that the man himself on stage would have written? If he wanted the ghost to look like a plaster bird, he could have written that into his script, could he not have?
I won't dig it entirely because I know Chloe talked about how English not being her first language, she for one admitted that there were several times when she did not fully understand the Shakespeare that was being performed in the Globe scenes. That she went more on emotion based. So I don't know if
I think it's
English
beautiful.
is the first language for this costume designer. Hence, like I don't know if maybe they missed that.
I'm just being nitpicky, and I don't have to believe it has to follow the historical accuracy. I'm just like, it's a choice.
Yeah. Yes. It is a choice. But let's dive into this one because I really want to get to Siobhan's thoughts on this. What was the weakest part of the film? Because we hinted at this section.
That is the question.
Okay.
That is the question, right?
So this took me out completely, and I'm so angry about it. And it happens twice. There are two birthing scenes. And in each of them, because again, the whole aesthetic of this film is very gritty, very real. And these birthing scenes are, there's goop all over the child's head. It's raw and real. And so I wondered, where the hell is the umbilical cord? In the woods, there's a jump cut. So I'm like, okay, who knows what happened? Did she gnaw through it?
A coyote, perhaps.
I need to see that. And then in the house too, they're like everything the way it's all continuous action. They just pull the child away, and it's all goopy and real. And I'm like, where is I have lost all belief in this woman giving birth.
And where's the placenta?
Yeah, all of it's all.
They always forget the placenta, though, Ryan.
It really bothered me.
But this is gritty realism, so you're right. That stuff should be there. All of these people have given birth before.
Yeah.
I know Jessie Buckley's mom. I don't know if Chloe is a mom.
Yeah, I don't know.
And Jessie was only a mom after this film, I think.
Oh, really?
Okay.
I think she finished this film and she was like, it's getting me really good for my career, so I think we can have kids now.
I just picture her giving birth after this movie being like, what the hell is that when she sees the cord? I was not prepared for this.
Because it happens twice and everything is so gritty, I thought, is it intentional? Like, is this a thing that they're doing deliberately? And I couldn't think of what the purpose of it would be. And in fact,
the babies are untethered from their father, and I'm just BSing.
The symbolism.
You said there were two things that took you out of it. Was it just both birthing scenes having the same issue?
Yes, it really, really bugged me. And I have a question for Macklin about the book.
Okay.
But we'll get to that later.
Very good. Very good. Ryan, what was the weakest element for you?
Okay. I thought I had you down for what yours was going to be, and I thought it's the scene that I thought was very stupid, and that's to be or not to be on the dock.
Oh,
very stupid.
I just think that's dumb. I just think it's a dumb thing in this otherwise very thoughtful movie.
Yep.
We don't need that. Nobody needs that.
Nobody needed that.
But it sells Hamlet, though, Ryan.
We don't need him to sell Hamlet. We get Hamlet sold to us later.
We have the whole play.
Yeah, we actually don't need to sell Hamlet earlier because we, like Agnes, get to experience, well, what the hell does this have to do with my son? And then we realize what it does. And it's like, we don't need that. We don't need the To Be or Not to Be. I'm kind of the mind that To Be or Not to Be always feels out of place, even in performances of Hamlet, because it has transcended the play itself, that it can no longer be part of Hamlet's actual character motivation to speak these words, that it just becomes, how will I do this speech differently than everyone else who's done it before me? I would love to buy a beer for a director who has the balls to cut that monologue from a future production of Hamlet. Oh. I said something similar in my review of As You Like It at Stratford last summer about the 7 Ages of Man, but I think these monologues have no place in these plays anymore. Yeah, I said it, come at me. That's one thing in the play where everyone's expecting it. But then to put it, like, Shakespeare staring out at the dock, and this is how he expresses his existential crisis. The whole point of the character is that he communicates through his art. So who is he even communicating? Like, I think that's what they're going for here. Like, he's communicating through the monologue he wrote, how he's feeling about his, but like, just put it in the play. We don't need that here. Who are you performing this to? Are you performing it to yourself? I would have rather just seen Noah Jupe perform To Be or Not to Be, and then we can have Agnes looking over to him and him just like, staring off into space about like, this is how he shares his thoughts with the world. I don't want to hear him say it. I thought that scene was silly.
It was meant to be his Oscar clip. If he was nominated, they would have used that moment.
But like, we have so many filmed To Be or Not to Be's. To me, that's the least impressive.
That would be like the worst Oscar clip to choose.
Yeah. And another kind of related thing that sort of bugged me, not as much as that, which is why I led with that, is the Orpheus and Eurydice segment. Actually, we talked about how there like isn't necessarily that like physical connection at the beginning. Yes, they do have a sex scene among the turnips in that room, but that's just to hand fast turnips themselves together. but like, we're not supposed to really think that like, oh yeah, these are just like two young sexy people who are like into each other. That it is supposed to be like a connection of the mind and the soul that brings them together. And the way that she's not into him, but then she hears him tell the story of Orpheus and Eurydice, and that's supposed to be what kind of like gets her intrigued. She says, what a good story. I just thought it was really weird how unpoetically he told it. You're freaking Shakespeare, man. Like,
yeah, I was wondering if he was going to bring out one of his own stories, and then he just did it.
Or
dude, what are you doing?
Or, one of the sonnets that he's written.
Yeah. Like, it just felt like, I kind of get the symbolism of the, the turning around, seeing what's behind you. Like, I'm not saying Orpheus and Eurydice doesn't work, and it's fine that that's never been prominently featured in any Shakespeare play, but I wanted him to kind of like, write her a freestyle poem in that moment. Why is he just telling the SparkNotes version of this myth?
Do you know why I like that? Because of your earlier comment that he seems a little bit autistic, right? His work is something that he agonizes over it. He's not working there. Right. His sonnets and his plays are work. Like, he works at them. And you can even see like him scribbling, trying to like it. He has to concentrate. He has to get it right. And
he's got to get that meter right.
Yeah. He's just telling her a story. He's not very ceremonious about it. It's a little bit awkward. Mm-hmm. I actually like that aspect of this famous story that he's telling. And the fact that he's Shakespeare, and it's kind of blah. Like, it's telling it is a little blah.
Okay.
I like that.
I see where you're coming from, and maybe I'll amend my comment a bit. I'm not saying it needs to be like perfect polish, because yes, I do like that we do get to see him agonizing over writing. We actually see him counting out syllables on his fingers. And so like, yeah, if it was just he recites a perfect sonnet like that, then that would over-affirm the spontaneous genius and not the hardworking, laborious artist that I think we do get to see very well portrayed in this film. I still want to see a little spark, though. To me, it felt very unsparky, and since this is supposed to be what makes her gravitate towards him, is just like, you ain't no Shakespeare to me, you're just some kid. I don't know.
And the rest is silence wasn't enough of the spark?
Just the one line that, out of the context of the great play that he'll later cannibalize that line for, it wasn't enough of a spark for me, I guess. Possibly because maybe I'm taking a little out of like Easter egg that I forgave as an Easter egg because it paid off in a meaningful way later.
Right.
But in that moment, I'm just like, okay, get my bingo card out. How many Hamlet lines are we going to hear in this thing?
Macklin, what are your thoughts on the weakest element of the film?
Yeah, so for me, it was definitely the writing. I thought there was like a lot of telling and not showing, and then they tried to show with like showing all the beautiful scenery, and I was just like, you can't just overcompensate, like you can't compensate for the like lack of information that you're supposed to be like telling me through dialogue by beautiful images. Like I love beautiful images and you can distract me a little bit, but I think when something doesn't hit emotionally, especially a story like this, it's because they didn't do the work beforehand. They didn't lay all the groundwork in the dialogue, in the pacing, in the writing that you need to get to that ending. Like the ending was very good. And actually, like I do think the Orpheus and Eurydice parallel, it like hit me like half an hour after I saw the film, and I was like, oh, that's actually really good way of handling it. Orpheus and Eurydice, that's really good. The other stuff before, like the relationship between Agnes and Shakespeare, I did feel like it was quite rushed. I did feel that weird coldness. I was like, why are you all of a sudden having sex at a barn? Like I did not feel the buildup. And also like the rush, like they really had, I know it's because like, again, they couldn't put all the information from the book into the movie, but there were some things that they could have kept for sure about Shakespeare's past and about Agnes's past that like really shows why these two are perfect for each other, why they're misunderstood in their own home, why they're so isolated. They like do it really quickly. Like all of a sudden he's like pinning his dad against the wall. And I'm like, okay, I know why you're pinning your dad against the wall, but I don't think you've given enough information why you're pinning your dad against the wall to like everyone else who has not read the book. I was just like, you need to give context. And yeah, so it's just a lot of moments that took me out of the film that way. And I was just like, oh, like the funny thing was the writing became so apparent at the end of the play when it wasn't her, like when it wasn't these two women's writing anymore. When it was Hamlet, I was like, oh my God, the writing's so good. And then I'm like, yeah, because it's Hamlet.
damn men.
It was just startling to see how effective it was emotionally, even though they're like chopping that play to bits, obviously, because we have to get all of Hamlet done in like, what is it, like 10 minutes? And I was still like, God, the writing's so good. And then I'm like, because it's Shakespeare. Because
Chloé Zhao writes with her camera in those final scenes. Like she tells the story with the way she just captures Jessie Buckley's face more than anything.
Yeah, and I think she relies a bit too much on that. Like, I know that she's such a visual person, because I remember, like, the only other film of hers I've seen so far is The Eternals, and I was like, yeah, that's
an art house film for people who don't like art house movies.
Yeah, made a lot and the visuals, but I think you're relying on that too much, and you need to like go back and do a draft again. Like, yeah, there's just so much skipping that you're doing, and you're not, and I don't think it's because it's weird because she like guides you along in all these ways, but then she loves skipping information, and I was just like, there needs to be consistency so that we can follow this relationship all the way through and get to the emotional climax that you are gunning for and showing your hand throughout. I think it's a mixture of showing too much and not enough in the weirdest places, but again, it might be because I read the book and I was comparing too much, because obviously a lot of people emotionally got there and were bawling their eyes out. So, but yeah, for me, it was like at the end when they were actually doing Shakespeare, I was like, oh, and the writing all of a sudden got really good.
Shakespeare's good at writing. Who would have guessed?
Like, yeah.
Who would have guessed?
That the greatest writer ever in recorded history was really good.
For me, like the weakest element was sometimes the pacing. There were times where I felt the film really went into that indie art house, slow drag, watch a plot along story, and it kind of some seems melded together where I went, okay, particularly in like the first third. Like once we get to the birth of the twins, from there onward, I felt the story has a good flow into the end. I would say like the beginning part getting up to the birth of the twins, there were moments where I went, this feels a bit laggy and nothing's really happening yet. And that's where I was really missing the young Shakespeare going off to London to start off his career, and we didn't get any of those scenes. That's where I thought it would have added a bit more dynamic to that scene, because watching Jessie Buckley be great, Jessie Buckley, but just it was like, this feels a bit laborsome. And I mean, my sister who's read the book said no, there's more in the relationships with her brother and whole bunch of stuff that was just cut. Maybe it would have been more rich character work that would have made those earlier scenes a bit more dynamic. But yeah, I found the beginning, the first third, a bit of a slog at times where I was like, ugh.
Yeah. Sorry, is the book question the next question?
It is.
Okay.
It
Sure,
is.
should we
Do you
get, should we
wanna
get
Can I
right
jump
into it?
into that? Because
lead into it.
the Bohemian Rhapsody day that we're gonna like jump back and forth on is the day that the twins get sick.
Oh,
That's the day
not the
that we go
Hamlet
back
debut.
and forth on. We begin with Hamnet wondering where Judith is, and it's because Judith has not left her bed because she is sick. And then it's like within like 2 or 3 days that Hamnet dies. So we're going back and forth. Like the tension is there from the beginning in the book because you are waiting to see why, like until we get to this point that this kid's gonna die. And you're constantly being reminded that this kid is gonna die. Like you are like, this kid is sick, this kid is sick, this kid is sick. Oh no, we're switching kids. Oh my goodness, now Hamnet is dead. And then that's like the big break in the book. And then we do the aftermath. But like the first part of that book, it's just tension building to when this kid's gonna die. And it was like incredible. So that's when they started doing it linearly, I was like, oh, we're missing all of that because like not many people read the synopsis. Like they just knew that this got Oscar buzz and they like Jessie Buckley and all that stuff, and or Chloé Zhao was a very big name. They don't know like that this kid's death is like the whole point of this. And also they think it's about Shakespeare and it's not about Shakespeare. That's also why I was just like, the reason why that day is important, because yeah, Shakespeare is famously absent from that day because it's not about him. It is about Agnes finding out too late and trying to do everything that she can for the wrong child and then realizing her mistake too late. And like all that tension, it's all about her and it's all about this family that Shakespeare has left behind. So I guess he's like the center in his absence, but like not really. It really is about her. The movie, by changing that, did confuse the narrative, and also by making him say all of his famous lines, like his Romeo and Juliet lines, his to be, it made it way too much about Shakespeare. And like the book famously never mentions Shakespeare's name. Doesn't say Will, doesn't say Bill, doesn't say Shakespeare, doesn't say any of the plays' names even. They are never mentioned in that book. And so when they fully say, is William Shakespeare about? I was just like, the whole point is that his name is never mentioned.
Can I jump?
Not about this. The thesis of the novel should be the thesis of the movie. And they just destroy it all the time by like doing all the lines and then fully saying his name. And I was just like, no, what is going on? I was so mad.
Could I jump on that moment for just a moment? And then please, I want to hear you say more about the book. But something I didn't know until I watched it the second time on Amazon Prime with the subtitles on is that the dialogue tags, and I assume this is what it looked like in the screenplay, which I haven't read, but when there's like a dialogue tag that refers to Shakespeare's lines, in the first third of the film, they don't call him Will in the subtitles, they call him Tudor, because that's who he is to Agnes. And then after they're married, it calls him husband. And then it's only when they arrive in London and they've said his name aloud that he becomes Will in the subtitles and presumably also the screenplay.
Oh, that's so cool.
So I agree with you. I did feel like, okay, did we need the moment of... Honestly, I would have preferred, instead of calling him Will, I would have maybe like call him like playwright or like author. Because I think like these like tutor, husband, author are like the 3 chapters of what this character means in this story. And like maybe he alienates himself from being the husband. But like to give him his proper name, the proper name that we know is so famous. It's kind of funny when they say it aloud there. Does William Shakespeare live here? And we know it's the first time we hear it. It made me think like, wait, was that supposed to be a surprise that he's Shakespeare? Like, is anybody watching this being like, oh my God, that's who that was? Like, and we get little bits of the plays. We see him writing Romeo and Juliet. The kids reenact the weird sisters from Macbeth.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're going to see Hamlet. Like, it felt like they thought they were surprising people with that line, which is so weird. And then I looked up after, and that he's never named in the novel. I'm like, that would have been better. And I like how the subtitles and presumably the screenplay mimicked that to a point, but then I think made a mistake by naming him too close to the end.
I don't even know if I don't even remember them saying that he's the playwright. Everything is in relation to what the other characters like think of him. Because he's not supposed to be his own character because he's always been his own character. The whole point is that he's not the main character, and everything that he is in relation to his family or to his friends or to his colleagues. So yeah, like he's just the father, the tutor, the glove maker's son, or just like the troublesome eldest son, or that kind of thing, like throughout the entire novel. And you never notice it. Like the novel is so well done because I never noticed that we never saw his name. And and you never knew, like you always knew who they were talking about. It was never confusing. Maggie O'Farrell did such a great job, which is why I was like so confused that she was totally writing on this too. And I was just like, why did you do that? Was that like a studio note? Because you
probably
did such a good job at not mentioning his name and not relying on any Shakespeare dialogue from any of his other plays to convey what he was writing about, where in time we are with him. You never needed that. You did this so well. Why is this all of a sudden?
I just picture the producer who's like, okay, but will people realize he's Shakespeare? Can you put that in there?
I guarantee that's probably what happened. I guarantee, because Chloé Zhao said she was not well versed in Shakespeare. So she wouldn't have cared if there were Shakespeare lines thrown in the screenplay. So I can almost guarantee that was a studio note of, we're riding the coattails of Shakespeare in Love, so we got to name him and we got to throw in some of his quotes that people will go, ah!
I will say, like, having not read the book, I do like the little snippets of other Shakespeare plays, but I like how unimportant they're presented. We see him writing and we recognize it as Romeo and Juliet, but it doesn't have to be like I'm writing Romeo and Juliet because I'm Shakespeare. And like when the kids perform the Weird Sisters from Macbeth, it's like, that he's a playwright. His kids love and respect him, and some of them want to join him in the theater one day, though at least the one that's allowed to because he's male. I think that's a cute activity he would do with his kids, and because he has trouble relating with people, he can relate to his kids through do the play that I wrote. This is how I show my love for you. Isn't this a fun one? It's about witches.
Right?
I think it centers his words again. It brings them, and I'm just like, oh, we just didn't need that. It's not about you. Because, I mean, there are quotes of Shakespeare in the book because they are, like, before each part, she does quote a relevant piece of Hamlet before each section of the book as we go through it.
Istvan?
What?
So we never really stated the question because we've just been like, we want to talk about the book, but Meg, can you read the question for us?
True, I should read the question.
You did repeat the question you have not said.
Did you think it was a good adaptation? If you haven't read it, do you now want to read it?
So I have not read it. I do want to read it. And again, everything I've heard about it so far is very intriguing. I'd be curious to know if just the prose of the novel would impact me more than the film. I also would like to get more into the headspace. A clunky element of the film, I thought the flashbacks to her mother, I thought they were clunky in the film, and I didn't really feel them. And I would like to know more. I'm wondering, I would be curious if the book gets more into her mother.
Way more into it.
Oh, see?
More into it.
I really,
the only clunky bit of flashback that is the book that I didn't like was how the plague got to that household. They do a whole chapter of how that flea bite in North Africa results in the plague,
which we get a puppet show for.
And I was like, yeah, they have a whole chapter, and I was just like, oh, okay, sure. Because every other flashback was so well done. I was like, I don't know why this was sticking out, but I do not like it. No, we get so much more about the mom, and the dynamic between the brother and sister, Agnes and Bartholomew, is so interesting. And it's all related to the mother, and you get all of that. It's so good. It's really good. And the writing is really, it's kind of similar to, like, I think it was really funny that you said it was like arthouse light, because it's like high, like literary light. Like, it's like,
right.
If you, like, don't go right into it if you're used to very fast-paced genre stuff. But if you have like started reading like more like literary things, like this is a good starter into like the really high, like literary dense books, because it's really slow. You definitely have to slow down, and the language is quite difficult. It has its own rhythm that Maggie O'Farrell like wants you to get on board with, because that's how she's going to tell the story. And it took me like 3 attempts to read the book to finally get through it, because like just the first chapter, I was like, I don't understand this writing style at all. But then because it's Shakespeare, again, because it's Shakespeare, because it's a story that we sort of know, you can get through it if you're interested enough. And yes, eventually the rhythm got to me and I flew through from like the first quarter onward. I was like, fine. I did just have to get used to it. Also, I work in children's books, so I'm way more used to that prose. And so it was also one of the few adult books I read that year. I was like, oh yeah, this is how adults write for other adults. I need to get used to this.
I did get the sense, and a part of this is the fact that I knew it was a novel, but sometimes I will be watching something and I'll realize, because I engage very differently with the written word than I do with a film or a play, right? So sometimes there are stories that I just feel like I got the sense that there were things I was missing and they were in the writing. That was of the novel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I am very intrigued to read it because the impression was that I think I'm missing things. Like one of the main things I feel I'm missing, and I believe it probably comes from her mother and how she was raised. The desperation, I did not connect to her desperately wanting to be in nature to give birth. And it was something that I felt like it's part of her internal world that I didn't feel I had full access to. And I feel like a novel might give me more access to an internal world that would help me understand that aspect of her character.
The whole witch part really is sidelined in the movie. The whole part of Anya's being a witch. And it's her whole career that she has outside of being a mother, which also irked me a bit in the adaptation because it's really about her being a mom. And that's all they talked about in all the interviews. Was like, oh my, like her being a mom, like this is the year of mothers and all that stuff. And I was just like, half of the book is about her being a witch and not being with her kids. And I was so mad when that part was taken out, because also it really helps with her courtship with Shakespeare, because the reason why she connects with him is because she's magic.
Yeah.
And when she, like, they do the hand touching in between like the thumb and the index finger, but like she's been doing that since she's a kid, and she's been like, she can tell the future really accurately through multiple examples before we even get to Shakespeare, before we even get to her prediction of 2 children by her deathbed. Like when they say that in the movie, I'm just like, okay, but you don't have the history of like when she says things, they come true. She is a witch. She is magical. Like it's really important that she knows this. And it's really important that she really thinks she can save her son, because she's always been like, not all the time. There's some, like, she definitely knows her limits, but the grief that she experiences when she loses Hamnet is because she should have seen it. She should have seen his death, because she's always been at least able to see death. She's been also always able to see ghosts of people who've passed, and she cannot find him. And it's a huge deal. And it's a huge part of why she can't grieve the way that like Shakespeare can grieve, is because she knows that she can see his ghost, because she has seen she's seen her mother's ghost many times. Like, why is her son's ghost not here? And it's like all gone. And I'm like, that's such a big part. But I guess it was very internal, so it would be so hard to put on screen. But I was like, oh. Also, the whole side business and her not just being a mom thing was like, that's such a big important part. But not, in the book's so good.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add to this besides I've started the audiobook a few times, always kind of get distracted, so I got to get back and finish the audiobook. My sister loved the book when she read it. She was the one that told me about how, you know, Bartholomew has a bigger role, Mary has a much more nuanced role, and also the whole witch subplot is totally mixed, not adapted well. My sister was mad about that being cut too. So Macklin, you are on the same page as my sister. So that just tells me that it was right not to win the best adapted screenplay, because there were elements that just didn't work because the book was missing. You know, nowadays people are all upset about this new Harry Potter show that's coming to HBO, and everyone's like, "Oh, the movies are good." I'm like, no, the movies were okay, but that's because we'd all read the book.
I don't think that's why people are upset about it, for the record.
There's multiple things. One of the many things. Yeah. Either way, the fact that, you know, people who read the Harry Potter books when those movies, knowing all the ins and outs of the little moments of, why is Harry looking at that glass shard and seeing, blue eyes? It's like, well, there's a whole backstory to that mirror that we never got, but the film kind of just shoehorns it in because, oh, we kind of need that now for a plot device. And so, that's something where I'm excited about giving these materials or getting to see shows get adapted into TV shows, because you get the richness of time to explore. Like, I'd be interested to see what would Hamnet, the TV show, be like as like a mini series, like an 8-episode arc versus a film. Because like I do feel we would have gone a bit more nuance of a lot of characters and Agnes in her character as well. Once again, the medium of film is so tricky. Hence why, winning the adapted screenplay in particular can be so hard. How do you translate something that's so good on a page into being something so well depicted on screen? And so, yeah, I do feel there were some steps missed. Okay, so let's dive into the next question, which is, this episode slightly bends the parameters of our screenplays subseries, since this film is not itself adapted from a play. However, the film's conclusion does recreate a truncated staging of Hamlet's debut performance at the Globe Theatre. What are your thoughts on the film's use of Hamlet, both a cinematic adaptation in its own right and more broadly as a lens through which the film explores themes of grief, art, and catharsis? Ryan, as you are the man who is at the Globe at the moment, what are your thoughts on this topic?
This is why I said it's okay for us to do a screenplays episode on Hamnet, because usually I'm like, we're not going to just do this on any movie that's about theater, but this one, hey, gives us a little staging. And I think it comes back to something, Mac, that you were saying earlier on about how you often feel cold watching Hamlet performed on stage. Yes. And Macklin, you had your very good experience of seeing one that did move you, but I share Mackenzie's ambivalence about a lot of the Hamlets I've seen. Hamlet is very well written, but maybe because it's just oversaturated, maybe because I've just seen so many of them, maybe I didn't start with the best ones when I could have gotten like a good impact. But I usually don't feel much for Hamlet himself. I think he's clever and brilliant and fascinating, but I never get the, oh, poor Hamlet, the rest indeed is silence. What I love so much about this movie is that the way that Hamlet is staged and how we get to experience it through Agnes's eyes and go on the journey from her to, what the hell does this have to do with my son, to, oh, that's what. And not just that, but the, I love the reaching. That's the moment when the waterworks started for me. And then when everyone else reaches too, and when she's like looking at all of these like peasant farmers and the groundlings all around her, and they're like crying for her son. It's just, I felt things about Hamlet from watching this movie that I've never felt watching a real production of Hamlet. I'm not even saying like the performance or the staging of Hamlet is anything like crazy to write home about. I think Noah Jupe is fine. Good Hamlet. He's no Laurence Olivier, but like he's doing a fine, serviceable job here. But I feel things watching this, and like the reaching out and the getting to take his hand, and Agnes getting to say goodbye to her son while also realizing that I thought Will wasn't grieving him at all, but this is how he was processing his grief, and he made something that isn't even for me, but for everyone, and everybody gets to feel this. He's gifting humankind this amazing artifact. All of these things exist in the staging and in the cinematic framing of that act of spectatorship. I love it. It's what I love most about this movie that I liked for manifold other reasons. But a few scenes earlier, I heard To Be or Not to Be, and I'm like, oh my God, is this where this is going to lose me? And then, get back here, watch this really good play done in a way like you've never seen it before. Commence Waterworks.
I would like to restate that the reaching, all of that should work for me.
You don't have to justify yourself.
It should, and it's the kind of thing that normally would. There's some block I have with it in this instance. I do like the fact that it is, for me, a quintessential Shakespeare performance in that some of my favorite Shakespeares, it's funny, I saw King Lear twice in one year. I saw it at Soul Pepper, and then I saw Shakespeare Bashed to do it, like within 6 months of each other, I think. And I much preferred Shakespeare Bashed. And it's part of it was because the actors will sit right with you sometimes and they'll speak to you. And like, because soliloquies were not written to be spoken to the gods, they were meant to be delivered to people there, right? I feel like it might have been a rowdier crowd historically, maybe, but I love the fact that she's close enough that she can touch him and he reacts to that. That I do like that. That's quintessential Shakespeare for me, when that immediate intimate connection can happen. It reminds me of one of the things that I find so powerful about theater, and which is why I like to be close. I always like to be close. I like to see the sweat and the spit and all that, because I want to see, and a part of this is at curtain call when people are clapping and you are looking face to face, like they get to see the impact they've had on you, and you see what it costs them to give a performance, and you're appreciating each other. But also when you're that close, you can, even before that sort of direct acknowledgement, you can still see what this is costing each other. You can see, right? Actors can feel what the audience is experiencing. Like they feel that energy, and you can see, like you feel it. It's a visceral thing when people are there a few feet in front of you. And that was really captured. I do love that dynamic between the audience and that actor playing Hamlet. Again, I keep psyching myself into it. Like I do really like it in theory. And who knows, someday it might actually click while I'm watching it. But I do understand that aspect you're talking about. Yeah, although I wouldn't consider this like a cinematic treatment of Hamlet itself.
I agree. We're bending this to justify doing this as a screenplays episode. We all know that's what's happening here. This isn't the best screen Hamlet I've seen, but it's the most I felt watching any Hamlet, screen, stage, or otherwise.
Macklin, now, as someone who's cried during Hamlet, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I thought that this was a great adaptation of Hamlet because, yeah, it would, for the people who don't see Shakespeare very often, or when they do see it, it's like for school and they can't get the emotional stuff because of the language or something. I was like, oh no, this is a really great way of getting that emotional ending beat of Hamlet for like everybody, because yeah, I felt very similarly to the end of this movie as when I saw like the live version of Hamlet, like the loss that I felt at this life being taken way too young. Like that's the whole point of that movie. Like that's the whole point of Agnes's grief, is like this future that she thought she knew that she had for her son is gone, and that she has to let go of it. But to do that, her husband has gifted the chance to see him again. And then the history of it was also conveyed really well with like, in the movie, they have the younger one and the older one, like they cut to them in like a lot, but like also putting it in the globe that is like still exists. I like felt the history of being like, and her son gets to come back to life for the next 400 years. Like I felt that history in that ending. And I think I felt that when I saw that really great production of Hamlet, I was just like, oh, I'm crying over something that thousands of people have cried over. This connection to history, I felt, was conveyed so well at the end because of this play that we do know so well, that's become almost too big for itself, that we want to cut out certain speeches from it. Like, on a seeing it for the first time would mirror a lot of people seeing Shakespeare for the first time, being like, what is this? What is this? And then going like, oh, wait, I'm getting into the rhythm. I'm getting to understand what the story's about. And then just being completely taken in by the ending. And yeah, so I thought it was like an amazing way of showing what live theater could do with a movie.
So my answer ties a bit into the next question. So I'm going to set up the next question as a way to get into my answer to the previous question. So in his review of Hamnet, English critic Mark Kermode describes the film's climax as being emotionally manipulative, especially due to its use of Max Richter's overutilized orchestral piece on the nature of daylight in its score. Do we agree or disagree with that critique? Okay, so now that question's been set up, I will say that because I've said Hamlet is not my favorite character, it is not my be-all, end-all favorite Shakespeare play, that it is always good. Like, Hamlet is a good show to watch. I feel that it hit the big moments, getting to watch the sword fight and the death and the ghost and all that stuff, hit all the marks of what you'd want to see in Hamlet. So as far as that is concerned, solid, hit all the marks. We even got it to your not to be speech, even if it wasn't well placed on a dock. So I would say that for sure worked. Now, had it not been for On the Nature of Daylight, would I have cried at the end? Because I would definitely feel something. I would, because there were moments like before that, earlier in the film, where I did sniffle and then, cry during the death of Hamnet himself. But the actual play and what that moment is, I don't think would make me as emotional as it does if it isn't for the rest of the film playing on my heartstrings. Like, Hamlet itself is fine. It's the other weight you're throwing into the pot that's making it react the way the potion reacts. And I think a big part of that is On the Nature of Daylight, because I tested my theory on this. I went back and rewatched the use of this song in The Last of Us. There is that wonderful episode. I don't know, have you all seen The Last of Us?
I have not, but you can spoil it. It's fine.
This one episode is not about Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey's characters. It's about this couple, these two men who meet during the apocalypse and form a life together. And then ultimately they get old and die. And then at the very end of the episode, that's when Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey's characters show up at their house, because it turns out their house is a safe house on this journey to this camp they're getting to. Anyway, point being is they use this music in the last third of the episode when the character has revealed he is sick with cancer and is dying and wants one last beautiful day together before he takes the sleeping pills and dies. And I watched that episode again, and the music came on, and like a beat, and I was already tearing up and crying. And then I went back and rewatched Hamnet again, just the ending part. So I was like, if I take out the rest of the movie and just watch from Agnes walking into the theater to the very end, do I still cry as much as I do having watched the whole saga of Hamnet dying and everything else? And yes, so I do feel this music is a emotional manipulative tool used extremely well to really hammer home the grief and the point. I stood on a podcast board, and one of our topics that we talked about was that the overused music in films. We're like, which song should be retired from being used in films in general? And this song came up on all our list of, this song needs to go. Like, it's used in so many spots. It's a beautiful piece of music, but it's almost become now the gateway emotional trick, where we've seen it used in so many other mediums now, or so many other films and TV shows that also have emotional resonance, that it's almost like a subconscious trigger point of anytime you hear the music, it's a sad moment, like it's going to trigger something in you and really hammer home the emotion of the moment. So I do agree it is a bit emotionally manipulative to use this, but I do like that emotionally because it made me cry for something that I have never cried for, which is the death of Hamlet. By the end, as I said, by the end of Hamlet, I'm waiting for him to die and bring on Ford and Bras, because I'm so there by that point in the story of, it's a slog. Let's just get to the end of this Hamlet. I gotta pee. As I said, to answer the last question, solid Hamlet, hits all the marks, but what elevates it is the music choice, because it actively manipulates me into feeling a lot more emotions than I probably wouldn't have felt if you were just to remove that music and put, I don't know, Tchaikovsky in there, Swan Lake music. I don't know. Throw something else in there, and like, would it work the same way? I don't know. Some film editor, go do that. Just go put like some Swan Lake in there.
Or Cotton Eye Joe or something silly.
Oh, no. I want something classical. Like, I want a Tchaikovsky, a Beethoven, Chopin, like some other emotional or some emotional sounding classical music that, see if it hits the same way as On the Nature of Daylight.
See, that's kind of interesting what you're proposing here, because I think if I understand Kermode's critique, which you seem to be emphatically disagreeing with here, if I understand his critique correctly, he's saying that, like, well, it's all very emotionally manipulative for a lot of reasons, but because he's so sick of that piece of music, that's what took him out of it and prevented him from having that emotional reaction, even though he recognizes that that music is calculated to produce exactly that type of reaction. I think if you replace it with a recognizable piece of orchestral music, be it Swan Lake or Chopin or anything, I think that would probably have a similar effect, or Lacrimosa from Mozart's Requiem, perhaps, because that's overplayed in a lot of film scores as well.
Yes, it is.
But
yeah,
I think
that was on that list.
I think Kermode's idea was that like Max Richter wrote that piece and he wrote the score for this movie, that Kermode would have preferred if Richter had written a unique piece for this moment in the film.
Agreed.
And I don't remember if this is something that Kermode said in his review or if I heard this in another interview, but that it was Jessie Buckley who suggested using that piece of music.
Yeah, he says it in that review.
Yeah, he does. Okay. I listened to a lot of different like podcasts and stuff with various creatives from this. I didn't remember where I'd heard it. But yeah, so Jessie Buckley suggested it and Chloé Zhao agreed, and like they're creating the vibes of this moment through that piece. Since I'm already talking, if I can get into my answer.
Keep going, Ryan. Keep diving in.
Okay, because I feel like there's sort of two questions nestled in here that for the sake of time we've bundled, because they both relate to Kermode's analysis. But one, is this emotionally manipulative? 1B, is that a bad thing? And 2, how do you feel about this music vis-a-vis that emotional manipulation and or its oversaturation? So to start with the music part of it, when that was not something that occurred to me at all watching the movie, certainly not the first time before I'd seen his review. So when he said that, I'm like, oh, was I supposed to recognize On the Nature of Daylight? Because I didn't. I went to look at the Wikipedia page for this piece of music. I'm like, oh, I've seen a bunch of these movies that it's been used in years ago. I don't know. It didn't ring a bell.
It's been used since it came out in like the mid 2000s, like Shutter Island and several films. Like I couldn't name that it was used in The Last of Us. The minute I hear it, though, well, I know that music.
Well, that's the thing. So I didn't have that recognition. Now, I'm a theater critic. Kermode is a film critic. He's probably much more used to hearing this and encountering it and rolling his eyes like a Wilhelm scream every time he hears it. So I get from his perspective that would take him out of it because like, oh, they're using the thing again. For me, I agree with Jessie Buckley that I think it is a touching piece of music that, and I agree with you, Mac, that in that moment creates exactly the emotions that I think this type of scene is trying to produce.
100%.
Now, for that reason, is this emotional manipulation? Well, yeah, but that's what movies are for, in my opinion. A movie like this in particular. We encounter...
But is it over manipulation? Like, is it a cheat code to get you to cry? Like music manipulated in a lot of different ways.
My feeling about this is that if I'm crying, I don't care how you made it happen. You touched something in me. Now, I can be like, oh, you dastardly Chloé Zhao, how dare you make me cry in your movie about a dead child, and how art helps us process our emotions. But no, that's the point. This is about emotional manipulation. It's about how Shakespeare wrote Hamlet to process his own emotions. And if I didn't cry watching it, I would feel cheated. Now, I know it's clearly not necessarily a consensus opinion that this made everybody cry. I did cry. The music was part of it. The play was part of it. Jessie Buckley's face was part of it. The gold paint in Noah Jupe's hair was part of it.
Yeah.
If I'm having an emotional reaction, I don't care what you had to do to pull my little puppet strings to bring it there.
Fair. Macklin, I assume you cried at the end?
I did cry at the end, and it was to do with the music because I do remember the last time I encountered this music, and it was Arrival. And I loved how it's used,
that's another good use of it.
Because I think the Arrival was so particular about how it was a palindrome and how time is circular and how loss is circular. So when they used it, I remembered how like the grief that I felt the last time I saw this. And it was just, it really also helped illustrate for me how like how time is like in grief is circular in this film as well. I think it was like part of the thing of repeating something is because you want, it's a shorthand. It's something that you have encountered in culture. You have baggage with it and you want that. Like, cause like, that's how we all encounter art is with our past encounters of art. And that's how we're going to react to this one. And so I think that's like, it's a completely like valid thing to be like, okay, so we are literally using these two brothers and we're going to make them look like each other and we're going to make time like do a warp thing. When was the last time we did that? Oh yeah, Arrival. And how did we communicate that with a piece of music that feels like a palindrome where it goes like that and then comes back around and ends the way it starts? And I'm just like, yeah, no, do it again. Do it again. This is a perfect moment to do it again.
Yeah.
It's really highlighting this theme of like grief and like the circular thing of grief. Great, do it again. But I am also in the camp of Arrival is the only other time I've encountered this piece of music. I have not seen all the TV shows and all the other movies. So maybe if I was a film critic and that was my job to see everything, I would be like, at the 17th time, yes, I am a bit tired. Could we please have something else? By the second time, I'm like, you can do it again. So that's where I'm at with that one.
Yeah. Istvan as the man who did not cry.
Yeah.
So for the sake of this question, let's pretend that I did. I wanted to, and I can understand how you would. So I really like the fact, Macklin, that you brought up the baggage that people carry into any work, because art doesn't exist in a vacuum. Sometimes it's our knowledge of certain things that brings richness to the things we're seeing, right? Is it manipulative? Yes, art is manipulative. Like, is opera manipulative? Of course. That's why you go.
Yeah.
You want those swelling scores. You want all that.
The humming chorus gets me every time.
The humming chorus, I know. So I was not familiar with that piece of music. I did see Arrival. I didn't remember it, right? That's not something that's bothered me, especially, right? But also in this way that things don't exist in a vacuum, I mean, I am very aware that, like, I'm thinking about, and I'm wondering if you might be thinking about this too, but I think to maybe future versions of Hamlet that I see, and will this pop into my head? Will Jessie Buckley seeing her son again pop into my head when Hamlet is dying? I wonder. I don't know. Maybe would that affect my experience of the next Hamlet I see? Maybe, and that's valid. That's how life works, right? And also, like, even I might even have appreciated it had I known that piece of music, because knowledge, I feel, this is going off track, but it's an example that is very distinct for me. But for example, sometimes your knowledge of something can make something better. For example, Lin-Manuel Miranda, I don't think he's a particularly good performer. I don't like him. He doesn't do much for me, but I appreciate him in the pro shot of Hamilton. The reason being, I know he wrote it. It's his baby. And that loads his performance with something that's not there in the performance itself. It's my knowledge that he created this, and that makes his performance better than it actually is. And that's valid, in my opinion. So even if I had known a piece of music as a tearjerker and it worked for me, maybe even my knowledge of it, previous knowledge of it, contributes to that. And I think people, again, like Ryan said, people can pull whatever strings they need as long as they have the desired impact, right? I don't feel cheated if you've given me something.
Yeah.
You did it.
We did it, everybody.
That's Hamnet.
Y'all reached out and got to the end.
There
we go.
Together as a community in the theater.
That's right. In our virtual theaters.
During the plague.
There we go. Brought together because of a plague. Yes. On this fun note, let us wrap up. But before we do, we'll give all our classic sign-offs of where people can find and follow us if we want to be found and followed. So, Istvan, where can people follow you and all your wonderful writings?
So, I mean, I'm on a bunch of socials. If you type in my name, you're going to find me. And my independent theater criticism blog is myname.com. So if you look at my name here, it's all lowercase, all together, istvandugelen.com. That's where my reviews are.
The best in the biz.
Copy.
Oh,
the best in the biz, I agree. Macklin, where can people follow you?
I do not want to be found or followed. So
wow.
Fair enough.
Gold.
Fair enough. You're like our other wonderful panelist, Mr. Ryan Barakovich. Give us that classic Ryan Barakovich send-off. We all know him.
Yeah, well, I'm not active on social media, so no point finding or following me there. I am the theater editor of Next Magazine. I have a weekly column there called Theater Scenes. Comes out every Tuesday. You can read that every Tuesday. Subscribe to our newsletter to get it in your inbox. And I oversee all of the theater writers there, so read all of those reviews, see what's happening in Toronto theater. And most of my theater thoughts can also be found here on the Cup. That's at COH Theater on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Cup of Hemlock Theater on YouTube, where you might be watching this, and Cup of Hemlock Theater podcast and all the podcast places where you might be listening to this.
And follow me at Mackenzie Horner, all social media platforms. Follow my other theatrical antics over on Before the Downbeat, a musical podcast. On that fun note, thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you all for joining us on this wonderful panel all about Hamnet. We will all be back very soon with our next episode, and be ready. We have the Toronto Fringe coverage coming very, very soon. So, and our 300th episode. So stay tuned for that too. We got a fun episode there too. Either way, thank you all. We will see you all in the next episode. Cheers.